What's going on, fam? We're back for another banging podcast episode where we get into it with Pigeons 420 and discuss everything you need to know to achieve a fire harvest. Now, P and I clash on quite a few things, but one thing we agree on is that good genetics is key to every run. Now, there's tons to learn from this episode, guys, especially if you want some fire harvest. So roll up and let's get into it. Talking Loud Podcast. It's always Diesel, dog, and we're in the house, and guess who you guys can see we're hanging out with today, man? I got my homie Pigeons 420. What's going on, bro?
Dude, I'm so thankful to be here, man. Thank you for having me. This is a blessing. Wow. iCanFAM Studios,
thank you for hitting me up and letting me know you were coming out here. I was like, man, you gotta hang out in the studio. I'll be thrilled to have you over, brother.
Dude, I knew when I made the trip down, because I drove from Canada to Nevada, 8 states in 7 days. I knew that I had to come see you if I could make this work going back through Colorado. And sure enough, I had to go far enough west to get to Nevada that coming back east to Colorado just fit the trip.
Yeah.
So I had to make it happen, dude. Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate you, my man. And you had actually hit up Strange Show last night. You headed out to see Scotty later on today. You got a packed day, bro. You're hanging out with the boys, the From the Stash Boys. Shout out to Rob, Chris. Congrats, Chris. You know, if you know, you know.
That's right.
But yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about how that experience has been coming over here, man. You've been here a few times, but doing a road trip of that magnitude, how was that?
It was the first time I've ever done anything like that. 5,500 miles, completely new to me. I rented a car, so I didn't put all these miles on my own vehicle.
Yeah.
And we essentially just trekked down, and I tried to bring a little bit of flour, a little bit of product with me, so that I wouldn't be totally without. And it worked out. I got all the way to Salt Lake City before I ran out, and tried to buy some in Salt Lake City. That was virtually impossible.
Utah, shout out to Utah.
Yeah, it wasn't
Once
so great.
again, if you know, you know.
Right? Yeah. And so didn't get anything there. Held on for another 6 hours till I got to Nevada. Met up with the boys. Shout out to my boy Swank Genetics. He hooked me up with some flour and a ton of dabs. Set me straight for the night. And then the next day it was rehearsal dinner. Meet up with Rob and Chris and got that boy married. It was an incredible experience. He's got a beautiful family, good friends. Yeah, it was great, dude. And then it was 12 hours on the road to get here. Sunday, got up at 5, hit the road for 6, and then we showed up here at about 7.
Bro, you've been on the move. Well, I'm going to ask you a few things today about your experience getting flour in those different places, but we're also, guys, going to be talking about beginner grows. Anyone who has a setup, if you're starting off, or also if you're looking to upgrade your setup, maybe making a few changes, what are a few things you look for? And we're going to be covering everything from medium, pot sizes, lighting options, all sorts of stuff. So in today's episode, you're likely to get some value. So make sure you guys smash the like, show some love, and yeah, P, let's talk a little bit about your experience before we get into that, about your experience. Maybe that one in particular in Utah, some of the flour that you got. So you told me you weren't able to get any flour out in Utah at all?
Not at all. No, you need to be a medical patient through the state in order to obtain flour. I didn't have a prescription through the state. I have a prescription through my doctor at home in Canada. Did not suffice, so I wasn't able to get anything.
Bro, I think Utah is bordered by so many states that are pretty much all legal.
Yeah.
And they're just like, nope, not over here, guys. Not over here. We're not having it.
Nevada's legal. Montana's legal. And I don't know what's to the... Well, we are. Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado,
Colorado's
yeah.
legal.
And Colorado's super legal.
But Arizona, I believe, is south of Utah, and I don't think they're totally legal. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm not. I have to double check that, but I know in Montana they're actually proposing a bill. If you guys are tuned into the Legal News Network, we cover all the laws and policies and bills. But they're actually proposing a bill where smokers will have to be added to a list, a registry, but you'll also have to pay an annual fee to use recreational herb.
It's ridiculous. That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Montana, bro.
It's not too far. Like in Canada, when I was a patient, I've been a patient since 2014. I had to spend $500 a year for my prescription just to get the license to grow.
Bro.
So yeah, and that wasn't including the genetics, the
license, the cost, everything. That's just
to
that's just the approval.
Approval. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm glad you were able to make it out here in Denver, Colorado, bro, where it's fully legal. We got dispos on every corner,
crossed the border from Utah into Colorado, and there was 3 dispos on the highway. Boom, boom,
yeah,
boom.
bro,
Just
all
like
over,
that.
bro.
I was like, we're in Colorado.
I think I got 3 dispos on my block right now.
You do. Yeah, you do. I saw them all.
Oh man, okay, let's get into growing, man, because we were able to just show P what we got growing on in our whole studio right now. We got
garden, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. You were able to pop into the flower tent. You saw the incognito veg chamber. We got plants looking really nice in there, powered by iCan Organics. But we're talking about grow setups today. Beginner grow setups, intermediate grow setups. We are looking to perfect our grow setups. And you got a lot of questions when it comes to like starting off as a grower, right? Now, the first thing that you will probably have to ask yourself before you even get into pots, lights, any of that stuff, do I want to grow from clone or seed?
For sure.
What would you do?
You know what? I think it's, you know what? If you have the opportunity to grow from clone, I think that's a great idea. But the reality is think of it when people are starting off new. I don't think you know somebody who has a mother who has access to clones that can give you that head start. So I feel like as a beginner, you're generally left to supply your own beans or to source your own beans. So I think by default, I think majority of beginners are getting started with a bean.
Yeah. And I think that it gives them a lot of options too, because some people have actually hit me up and they're like, yo, Matt, I'm looking for a strain that's really good with chronic pain. I've got like serious nausea issues. What's good for that? And certain people actually seek out these types of genetics.
Right.
Now, me, when I first started off, I was actually growing in the UK. I had the choice of seeds, so I chose seeds because I could not get clones. So if you're in a place that's not legal, you're most likely going to have to go with the beans option. Whether you order your seeds in or you get it from a friend. When I first started growing in Trinidad and Tobago, my first plant that I got was an autoflower given to me in a solo cup. Do you think beginners should try autoflowers or photo periods? Because that's the next decision that they'll have to make.
Yeah, you know what? I 100% believe that autoflowers are for beginners. And I 100% believe if you're just getting started, you know, you don't understand the concept of running multiple tents, you don't understand the concept of veg and flower, you don't understand the concept of switching light cycles, you don't understand how the plant's going to grow from a calyx to pistils to buds to flower. So start with an autoflower.
Yeah.
You don't know how to fix what could go wrong anyway. So a lot of people argue, well, you don't start with autoflowers because if you mess up, you can't fix it.
Yeah.
The reality is if you're new and you mess up on a photo, you don't know how to fix it anyway either.
Yeah, true.
So what's the difference? What's the difference?
You still can't fix that shit.
You still can't fix it. So just grow an auto, plant a bean, put it under a light, and have one tent set up, grow multiple tents, have that flower, start the next bean, away you go. I think autoflowers are great for beginners.
Yeah, I understand your point of view, but I think I may have to take the other perspective and slightly disagree. Now, I learned so much when I ran my first auto run, bro, that it helped me get a crash course and everything, because the first plant I grew when I was out in the UK turned out to be a male. So I didn't actually get to harvest some flowers, sample it myself, and all that. So I had no dry and cure process because it was a male.
Grow an autoflower.
Good point. So another reason to grow an auto, but I was really disappointed after my first auto grow because I tried so many things. I tried nutrients, I put it in a massive ass pot. It was growing outdoors instead of under lights, and I made so many mistakes. But my harvest was literally 7 grams. I was so disappointed. But the great thing is that I learned so freaking much, dude. It was a crash course in everything from popping the seeds to veg, flower, dry, cure, harvest, bro. Everything. And I think that is really remarkable. That is invaluable, bro. So I think it's even though I may disagree with you, I think that it's invaluable in the sense that beginner growers could definitely gain a lot from it. Like, if you don't go in with high expectations, expecting to yield like 3-4 pounds from your one autoflower plant, then yes, you will learn so much, and that's definitely the way to go.
Right. My very first plant was a photo, and it also only grew about less than 7 grams.
Really?
Yep, because I didn't know what to do, and I put it on 12 and 12.
Oh, off the rip.
At the bat, right? I didn't know.
Okay.
But had I done that with an autoflower, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
It still would have grown because I had to know about light cycles from the beginning. Growing a photo, I had to know that there's 2 sets of light cycles. Didn't know that. So I just put it on 12 and 12 because all I knew is weed grows under 12 and 12.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, let's figure this out. So yeah, you know what? That's different strokes for different folks. It comes into it. I feel like you came into this with a little more knowledge, enough to know a little to get in trouble. Whereas, like, yeah, you probably should have started with a photo because you wanted to top, you wanted to know light cycles, you wanted to train, you wanted to do all that. That would have been great for a photo. In my opinion, you were biting off more than you could chew as a beginner.
Yeah.
And so
Good
therefore,
point, though.
you know, an auto didn't quite.
That's a really good. You just flipped the whole script because you had a little bit more knowledge. It
Right.
might have been better to go with the photo because you want to try so much. You want to
That's right.
experiment, man. Like I literally topped an auto and I was like, maybe I should not have done that.
And
Yeah.
You're right.
And then you started go on Google how to grow autoflowers. They're like, rule number 1, do not top autos. I'm
Yep.
like, oh,
Rule number
damn.
2, don't transplant.
Oh, I got it in the solar cup. Fuck
Yeah.
that up too.
Damn. Right? Yep.
Oh man, so that's actually pretty cool, man. Now, we did mention genetics, right? We touched on it briefly when people, they search out different types of genetics and people look for stuff for nausea, pain, whatever the case may be. When you were starting off, did you look for any specific type of genetics? Were you just looking for the old school strains that you knew from back in the day? I want to grow those. Like, what did you pick?
That's it, man. That's it. I didn't know anything.
Okay.
So I knew that I wanted to smoke some good product.
Yeah.
And good product that I had in the past were names I was familiar with. Gorilla Glue. Strawberry Cough.
Bro, that's crazy.
Widow, right?
Gorilla Glue was the first auto that I grew too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Straight up.
It's
Gorilla
just what
Glue.
I
I
knew,
was like,
right?
yeah, I want the Gorilla Glue.
That's the one I know. That's the
GG
one I
number
know.
4.
Yeah, that's it. And so it's like I also learned that if you want to grow fire genetics, just like research who was winning cups 5 years ago.
Yeah. Good point though.
And then source those genetics, because guess what? In a 5-year period, those genetics haven't gotten weaker.
No.
Like, if you're picking something like an OG Kush from the 90s,
Yeah.
maybe today's OG Kush might be a little more powerful. But if you're going 5 years back, I feel like the genetics are still fire.
Because they're still relatively new.
They're still new, and they're not as expensive as the one who won the cup last year.
Good point though.
Right? Go back 5 years, and they're starting to die down a little bit. So that's
Pro
really
tip.
what I used to do.
Pro tip. That's a pro tip. That is a fucking pro tip, bro. Because I didn't even think of it that way. Really go back the last 5 years. So yeah, I think that's a great point, bro. A lot of those genetics will be relatively new and you're still getting that fire. Because think about it. Like, the newest thing is always the most expensive. But it does not necessarily mean that you need to go for the newest thing. Because some of those older stuff, like exotic genetics, has won tons of cups in the past. I've run some of his older stuff, like the Slippery Susan, the Sweat Helmet. And those are absolute fire, bro.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And get them for a really good price.
Yeah, I think that can't be beat. Okay, so next decision you probably have to make is, what type of setup do I want? What type of environment do I want? Do I want to grow in a tent? Do I want to grow in a full room? What would you suggest for a beginner? Would you suggest going down the open room method, throwing some lights in a room?
You know what? I take the same concept that I take from the beginning of a grow to the end of the grow.
Okay.
And that's save money, save time, source locally,
Yeah.
and use what you have.
Okay.
So, first of all, if you don't have
I
a
like
tent,
that.
don't buy a tent.
Yeah.
If you've got a little extra money and you want to start to figure this out, get a tent. Get a decent light. Get yourself set. But the reality is that you can probably grow a fire setup. I've seen one here in a closet, in another case, in a fridge, in a freezer. There's so many spaces that you could kind of jimmy rig up to make work for your setup. That's number one. Use what you have.
Yeah,
when
good
you're
point.
starting these beans off, you don't need a $700 light. You need a CFL, dude.
Literally, bro.
A $7 bulb will germinate this plant for you.
Yeah.
Use that 2 weeks of that to think about what's coming next. What kind of light do I need for veg? Do I want a full spectrum that's going to work for veg and flower?
Yeah.
Do I want to buy something a little more budget friendly so I can just spend like $100 right now, get the first 8 weeks of veg down, then spend another $100?
Because when you think about it, when you're first starting off a grow, or even if you're upgrading your grow, there can be so many things you need to purchase, so many things you need to buy. So really being sensible about it, figuring out what is the important things that I need first off, rather than, like you said, going out and buying the $2,000 light, right?
That's
you
right.
put that in your tent,
right.
but you haven't even germinated your beans yet.
That's it. If you tuned in to my shows on YouTube or wherever, or tune in any creator,
Definitely check them out.
you'd think, wow, okay, I need a 4x4, I need a $700 commercial grow light, I need 4 clip-on fans, I need the massive humidifier, I gotta have one of these AI controllers. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't. Now, of course, it's gonna make your life a lot easier, but it can be so overwhelming to dive into just the equipment.
Yeah,
When the reality is like you got to plant to figure out how it grows. You got to understand the light cycle. Everything we've been talking about. It's going to need to be fed. It's got to be taken care of, trained, nurtured. These are all things that I think need more of your time, effort, and energy than sourcing and getting lost in the rabbit hole of buying the best of the best and the new.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is really important. Having a lot of that knowledge, you can be like, okay, I can actually avoid having to buy some of these things because I can use this instead.
That's right.
You know, so for me, when I first started off, I was like, okay, I want to go and get the fancy fabric pots because I heard those were really great. I also want to get the expensive lights. So I popped onto Amazon without doing a whole lot of research, and I saw the lights that have the veg and bloom cycle. I was like, okay, red for flower, blue for veg. I'm going to grab that. I copped the purples, man. And now I'm like, ooh, clown, why did I cop the purples, clown? You know, but at the end of the day, there's so many options out there. It could become overwhelming as a beginner grower.
It is overwhelming.
Yo, iCan is all about helping home gardeners level up their harvest. Now, there are lots of ways that you can do that. You can obviously start off by joining the iCan VIP Bean Club for fire genetics, or by becoming an ultimate VIP and get organic nutrients with every drop. But most importantly is having a good environment for your ladies to thrive. I'm talking proper LED lights, not those cheap Amazon knockoffs, and the Mars Hydro lights rock. That's what I've been using for such a long time, and I have absolutely no regrets. They always got sales running, so use the code icanthc on top of sale items to grab a double discount. Now, my flower tent rocks with two Mars Hydro FC6500s. They are beastly lights with amazing coverage. My tent has lights and buds from wall to wall. These lights have external dimmers and they are bar style or board style. Take your pick. And best of all, they got supplemental UV and IR lighting that you can use alongside whatever brand of lights you use. Now, when your tent is dialed in and your flowers are booming, you're going to need a carbon filter, and Mars Hydro's got those too. You definitely don't want any pesky neighbors or guests getting all up in your garden because it's smelling all the way down the road. And it's not only just lights, tents, and carbon filters, but also full kits with pots, timers, oscillating fans, humidifiers, sprayers, sunglasses, trellis nets, and a whole lot more. You need it to grow, then they probably got it. And they've launched a new rewards program, so make sure you grab your free gift. Don't forget to use the code icanthc to get a double discount on top of sale items. So level up your grow room today and let's grow! Yeah, so what I would suggest to everyone is like exactly what P said. Just break it down, keep it simple, and you will probably find yourself having great results. Now, a lot of people will have a decision to make when it comes to plant pot. It may seem really simple, but that was a decision I had to make. I mentioned fabric pot. I went with fabric pots when I first started off, but I've since found that I don't really like fabric pots. I prefer plastic. What do you do when it comes to pots?
You know what? It's funny. It's like I pretty much started in fabric pot. I guess I started in solo cups, but like I started in fabric pots. I've always used fabric pots. I have used plastic pots. You know what? I think that's a love-hate relationship with fabric pots.
Same.
I love them. I love what they do for the expansion of the roots. I love that they're easy to store. I crumple them all up and just throw them in another pot.
Could even throw them in the washing machine, wash it.
I do. The wife takes care of all the laundry of that. So it's like, I love that. I love being able to take care of that. The reality is, though, is I also hate the fact that when you're watering, you know, you have to slow down. You have to go really slow. Because unlike a plastic pot, I can just fill that son of a gun and then just watch that water just seep down into the pot.
Yeah.
You can't do that on a fabric pot. You pour that, it's just whoop, out the sides and
everywhere.
Nothing's
Room's wet. Tent's wet. You gotta figure out. You gotta get the wet vac out. If you're like me and you don't have a wet vac, you gotta grab a few towels.
Sop it up. Yeah,
bro.
It can be a pain in the ass.
That's one of the biggest reasons I've moved away from fabric pots, but also because fabric pots inherently dry out a lot faster, right? So here in Colorado, where it's super dry, I'm finding my fabric pots drying out way too fast, bro. So the plastic actually helps me retain some of that moisture. You know, so if you guys are finding yourself in a situation where you need to make a decision whether plastic or fabric, consider your environment, right? Is your environment really dry? Things going to dry out super fast? Then maybe a plastic pot may be better. But on that note, some of these fabric pots actually, like the iCan self-watering bases, stuff like that, they use wicking systems, so your plants always stay moist. Use code icanthc on iCan30 gear. But so what do you think about that?
You know what? I like I said, I like the fabric pots, but I particularly don't enjoy fabric pots that have the grommets on the top.
Okay.
Because when you water, guess where all your soil goes? Or your medium just goes out those grommets.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts. And it's already hard enough to not have the water seep out. Remember, I'm a fabric pot guy.
Yeah.
But it's hard enough to not have your water seep out the sides. Now you've got to worry about them seeping out the grommets.
Yeah.
Grommets give you a benefit of training and such, but I think it's a bigger pain in the ass than it is.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Now, you mentioned training, bro. So, I mentioned training earlier, too, when I was talking about my first autoflower. I did all types of training. I tried LST, I tried super cropping, I tried filming, I tried everything, bro. And I found that was not ideal. So, having experiences you do and having tried different types of training methods, what would you recommend a beginner grower starting off when it comes to training? Do you recommend them trying high stress training methods like filming, topping, super cropping, or would you just recommend doing some low stress like bending?
See, if someone's going to get started, this is why I recommend an autoflower.
Okay.
Don't train.
Okay.
Understand.
No training.
Understand the morphology of the plant.
Yeah.
Understand light cycles. Understand what it looks like when a veg plant becomes a flower plant. Understand what it's like to watch the buds mature. Understand what it's like to see what a trichome looks like when it's milky versus amber versus clear. So,
good point.
Don't train. But at the same time, as someone who is a huge advocate on training your plants, once you've understood all of those foundational points of the plant growth, you need to train your plants.
Yeah.
You have to train your plants to utilize and optimize the plant and get the most out of it.
Yeah. And I've found myself in a situation where I'm faced with so many options when it comes to training, right? And I found myself weighing away from certain types of training the more I grow. So I don't really do a bunch of super cropping unless it's absolutely necessary. I top all the time, but I don't go crazy with it, just a few times just to break that initial apical dominance. And I really don't like tying down branches anymore, bro. I hate popping holes into my pot, grabbing out the wire, and pulling down branches. So now I use LST clips. Shameless plug, shout out to Bud Trainer. I love those clips, man. But have you found yourself not doing any types of training just because you moved away from it?
No, I'm heavy on the train. So
you do all types?
Well, I don't top anymore at all.
Oh, you don't top at all?
At all, no topping.
Okay.
Zero topping. I even have a video out
That's
there.
That's the complete opposite to me.
Plants. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And the reality is I can get the same effects just by bending. And I don't need to delay the growth 3-4 days after a topping to just see to see the sprouting. I can just bend it over and watch that same sprouting happen. Yeah, so I don't do any topping at all. I haven't topped in years.
Wow, bro, that's crazy. And coming from someone who tops all the time,
it's preference, dude. It's preference.
Yeah.
You end up after a while, you start to learn what plant style you enjoy.
Yeah.
What structure do you enjoy? I enjoy the Hanukkah, the menorah kind of look where you've just got a bowl on top of a stem.
Yeah, fair.
And to do that, you just bend, dude. Just bend.
Literally looks like one of those candles, right? With all
the Jewish candles.
Yeah.
I think it's called a Hanukkah. Shout out to my boy
Rob. Yeah. Shout out to Rob. I'm not sure, but I know exactly what candle you're talking about. I know the look as well. Man. So that's pretty interesting. I'm loving the fact that you have certain perspective on things, and I have, and we contrast, bro. Yeah, like we're literally.
Now we need to fight.
Nah, I was like
celebrity boxing.
Okay. So for beginners, right? When it comes to beginners, we're talking about everything today, and I think the most important thing is dialing in that harvest. And you mentioned already, it'll be important having some knowledge about the trichome, the colors, and how they turn from clear to cloudy to amber, so you can understand when's the perfect time to harvest. So let's talk a little bit about harvesting, right? Because that's the most exciting time for any grower. No matter if you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced grower, I love freaking harvesting, bro. I harvested some plants and showed you. But what do you do when it comes to harvesting to avoid any situations like hay smell? Because that's the biggest problem that a lot of beginners face. People are like, yo, I harvested, my shit tastes like hay, it smells like hay, and I never want to grow again. What would you say to them?
You know what? This is probably one of the most common questions you get. Why does my stuff smell like hay?
Yeah.
And can I save it? The reality is you probably did things too fast. You rushed. It probably dried too fast. Mold can take in as well. There's so many factors.
Damn, that's a nasty one.
But the reality to me is that majority of the time people are drying their stuff too fast.
Okay.
They're evaporating the terpenes, they are losing all that greatness, and once it smells like hay, you can't bring it back.
Yeah.
You know, there are genetics out there that do have like a grassy kind of farm-esque smile, like a grungy. No, I'm trying to be respectful, but it just has that earthy kind of down to root smell.
Yeah, earthy is not the word that I want people to describe my flower as. You know, I showed one of my homies once autoflower grow. I gave it to one of my homies. I was like, smell that, and I could see the look on his face. He's trying not to be mean to me, bro. And he smells the jar. And he's like, this smells. It's got an earthy smell to it, man. And I'm like,
damn it. Damn it. Yeah. You know what? And that happens. But the reality is it can be fixed by just taking your time, understanding that you need a slow, controlled dry of anywhere between 5 and 12 days.
Yeah.
And you know, depending on your climate, that's gonna vary. But slow down. Try to take it easy. Don't rush. We're excited, but you got to take your time at this point.
Yeah, really, and harvest at the right time, right? You don't want to harvest too soon, but you don't want to harvest too late either.
That's right.
I've been finding myself harvesting a little bit too late lately, and it's just not as perfect as I want, just because I'm like lazy, you know? I'm like, I'll leave it for a couple more days, and then those couple more days turn into a couple more weeks.
She starts sagging a little bit.
Yeah, literally, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I got a couple plants like that right now, you know? So when it comes to harvesting, are there any special harvest tools that you use? Because people get hung up. They're like, yo, I need this fancy drying machine. I need like a cantrol, all these types of stuff. As a beginner, what do you think is your important harvest tool?
You need glass jars. I think is really number one.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't need fancy bags and fancy pots and just a glass jar works fantastic.
If you got some old jars at home, grandma's glass jars, we call them.
You know, make sure you rinse your pickle jars out enough so there's no taste or smell in there. But you can use pickle jars. You can use mama's cookie jar. You can use all kinds of things as long as it's got a good tight seal on it. Using what you have, saving money, being resourceful is number one, because it's very easy to spend thousands of dollars on shit you will never use again. So glass jars are number one, and a good set of trimmers, man.
Yeah.
You want a set of trimmers that have an active spring that bounce back.
Yeah.
It's not a pair of scissors where you're doing both actions yourself. You need to have a spring in there, so you push down, it springs open.
Yeah.
You push down, it springs open.
Yeah.
You know, friskers are good, but quite frankly, anything with a good spring and feels ergonomical in your hands are going to do fine.
Yeah, I will have to second that, man. Don't get too hung up on it, because this is the most important stage. And what I would say is that you can get by with a lot of cheap household items and use that for your drying. Like for me personally, I've got like a clothes drying rack, you know, one of those removable racks on wheels. You can hang flowers on that, get a couple of S-hooks, hang them up on that. Also, in the past, I've used like clothes hangers, hang those up and hang them up in my tent.
In your tent.
Exactly.
If you're wiping out the tent, or if you're harvesting the whole tent, use the tent as the environment, as the dry environment.
Yep,
It'll
absolutely.
work just fine.
And there are even some of those clothes hangers that have like a bunch of clothes pegs on one, like 50 clothes pegs on a circular ring. Use one of those, man. You can use one of those.
I use a scrog. I just take the scrog, because it's like those nylon ones. I just slide it to the top of the tent, and then I just hang the weed off that.
Wow, bro, that's pretty dope. Yeah, I like that. Simple. I think I seen you do that, bro. I like that. Simple. Shout out to Northern Scrogger as well, man. Yeah, man. So you mentioned using your tent, but if you're in a situation you're drying and you cannot use your tent, what would you use?
Immediately, I'm thinking your shower.
Yeah.
Like use your shower,
I
your
use
bathroom.
That. Yeah.
Because in the shower, in the bathroom, you can turn on the exhaust fan.
Yeah, good
That's
point.
not going to give any direct air on the plant. It's just going to take out that excess moisture out of the air that's in the bathroom. It's not going to be direct. It's going to be nice and slow. In the tub, you can hang it off the curtain rod.
Good point. I didn't even think of that one either.
Bathroom is the first place that comes to mind for me.
I use the bathroom I call it like my Harry Potter room of requirement, bro. Yes. If I need it for anything, like I'm gonna go in there, because I got a spare bathroom, you know. So outside the grow room, I either pop some plants in there if I need to veg a little bit longer and I'm running out of space, throw some plants and some lights in there. Or if I'm drying, I can throw the plants after I chop them down, hang them in there to dry, and it's a climate controlled environment. I always tell people that. Yeah.
And you can use the tub for watering, for flushing, for whatever. Use the tub.
Water source close by.
That's it. That's it.
I love that, man. So some of these harvest tools you guys can really find around the house. You know, you don't have to look too hard, but if you open your mind, you can be like, oh, I can repurpose this.
Of course, dude.
It works
like, people have been growing
great.
weed for a very long time.
Hell yeah.
Tents have only been around for a minute. Lights have only been around for a minute. All these fancy things have only been around for a minute.
Yeah.
You can do it, and you can be resourceful, and you can save a ton of money, and you can still grow some fire herb by just opening your mind and just being open to the concept of using what you have available.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to second everything you said, man. Well, I think we've actually dropped a lot of great tips for people when it comes to everything, you know, from pretty much getting your whole setup running, and also, in the most important part is drying and curing. I think that that's really crucial, because a lot of people get that hay smell and they just feel so frustrated, bro. It feels like such a disappointment after growing for 4 or 5 months and you got something that you don't really like that much. But I think some of the stuff we dropped can definitely help them out. So before we actually close off, P, like, let's just tell the people where can they find you, what have you got going on, and let them know what's poppin'.
Appreciate you, dude. Thank you very much. Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Central, over on YouTube. T with P. That's my podcast. Come tune in. If you're not hearing about it on the
CLNN, Cannabis Legal News Network.
CLNN. You'll hear about it over on T with P. And then I'm streaming every single night. Twitch.tv/pigeons420. Come hang out, come game, and smoke some good stuff and laugh a little.
Hell yeah, man. Guys, definitely check P out. He's got some great stuff going on, crushing it on YouTube. He's also doing some stuff on Twitch and posting a lot of stuff on IG. I've been checking some of your lives on IG, brother. I like it. I'm liking it, man. I can see the behind the scenes into the garden and shit, bro.
It's all BTS, man. I love giving that look behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's just like this, man. You only have this, this camera view, but little do the people know you have a beautiful studio down here full of trinkets and conversation pieces and eye candy. I love it, dude.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's why I love the behind the scenes, because I love to see you go. What you got going on in here.
Dude, man, speaking of all of that, I just want to say, guys, check out P, see what he's got going on. P, thank you so much for coming to hang out with me, my man. It was a really great sesh, and we got to do this another time, man. When next you're out here, let me know. I'm going to meet you where you're at. We can fucking link up, bro.
Yeah, dude, that'd be epic, dude.
Oh, yeah, man. But, guys, smash that like. Check out what P's got going on. We see you guys on the next one. Much love.